Welcome to the Glunz Tasting Hall. We have Scott and Annie Shull from Raptor Ridge, right down in the Willamette Valley, and it is just so great to have you guys join us. We originally had this planned last week, or maybe it was even before that. I feel like it's been a long time.
Weeks ago.
I'm sure it seems even longer for you guys with all that you've dealt with. We are thrilled to have you guys safe, number one. Number two, being able to join us in harvesting and working through the great harvest of 2020. I'm going to jump in and share a little bit of a screen here, which has been my latest kind of geeking out on our ability to, let me share here a little fun screen with little thing that I've been working on. And let me go ahead and present here. And we are currently, this is Google Earth, kind of a cool program. This is where we are here in beautiful Chicago. It's only about 60 degrees here. And we are not going to be getting much warmer. So let's head out to the West Coast here and shoot to the next slide here. Let's see if we can get this going. And we're going to sneak over here to Oregon, beautiful Pacific Northwest.
Well, that's the fastest flight I've ever had. Usually it's 3.5 hours. I love 30 seconds. Thanks, Joe.
Absolutely. This is a little shot of the Willamette Valley. On the north side there, we now have all those AVAs listed there as well. Then we come into a view of the Chehalem Mountains, so you can kind of see the mountains going up, and then in the way background you can see Mount Hood. Right in between two of those happens to be this gorgeous little property that we're going to be visiting here is Raptor Ridge. Raptor Ridge is beautifully accented there, and you can kind of see the curvature of the land there with being situated right on the hillside. And right there, better than all of these silly pictures, is this great mug right there. Scott Shull, welcome, and thank you for hosting us here at the Glunz Tasting Hall.
Yeah, thanks, Joe, and everyone. I appreciate your flexibility, giving us an extra 2 weeks to get together. As you may have heard, we had some distractions here in the Willamette Valley, especially just 2 miles from here. But we're all delighted that we had some rain last night, had like a 1/4 inch of rain that has settled the dust, and it's helped the firefighters that are 100 miles to the west of us fighting some pretty big 100,000 acre fires. So the rain was a godsend. Yeah, we're here at Raptor Ridge Estate. I want to be as kind of interactive here with what's going on with harvest, and then get you right into the tasting. So I'm doing the call this morning from our crush pad. We've just had last week or 2 weeks ago, we had our bubbles come in. So we've got our base wine for our sparkling Brut Rosé already in tank. And we're about 1/3 of the way through harvesting our Pinot Gris. So we're sorting and pressing, I think, here into OT1. This is about a 4,000 gallon tank. We've got our first 1/3 of Pinot Gris in. And we've pulled a few fermenters. Each of these is 1.5 tons of Pinot Noir from different vineyards, different blocks. We'll show you a little bit of that in a second. And I'll tell you a little bit about the history of Raptor Ridge and our makeup as well. It's a small mom pop organization. Everything is done by hand. I'm standing here in front of our now clean and quiet sorting line. It fires up again tomorrow. We've got Auxerrois coming in, some more Pinot Noir throughout the week, and then we'll finish off Pinot Gris, and then we usually, some of our vineyards that are high and old and out in the windy coast range, those are the ones that usually come in last. So this is about a 10,000 foot facility, which is perfect. 1 square foot per case of wine per year. It's my metric. We produce about 10,000 cases of wine per year. So Joe, if we want to go to the written material, I can, if you don't mind sharing that, I'll go through that, and it could be part of the record, so people that are looking at this in the future will have this written material. And it's so nice outside that I'm just going to go step out here in the vineyard as well. So as I said, Raptor Ridge is in the Chehalem Mountains. Joe nicely flew over with Google Earth. We are in Oregon's newest AVA. It's called the Laurelwood District. So that's a proper subset contained inside of the Chehalem Mountains. It's about 2 months old now, freshly minted by the TTB. The Laurelwood District has in common a consistent type of soil. We are all, surprisingly, Laurelwood soil. It's a rather young by geologic standards soil. It's only about 15 to 20,000 years ago that this soil was washed in and blown in from the Missoula floods. If you're a geology geek, just go Google Missoula floods and you'll learn of the amazing cataclysmic events that happened here that shaped the soils here on these slopes of the Chehalem Mountain. And so we're all delighted to be part of the Laurelwood District. As I kind of mentioned briefly, we're a small family winery. We're celebrating our 26th vintage on the vine right now, 25 years in biz, make about 10,000 cases a year. Everything is very authentic, from the people to the vines to the wine. We are also very honored that we've been entrusted by our colleagues to be part of helping shape the modern Oregon wine industry. I was a founding director of the Oregon Wine Board, also president of Oregon Pinot Camp. My wife, Annie, is a director of the wineries of the Willamette Valley. So we get our hands dirty and join our colleagues in getting together and doing things like defining what sustainability means and putting some real codified specifics behind it and forming the live organization. Everything that we do at Raptor Ridge is either certified sustainable. Some of our growers from whom we lease land is certified organic, and a couple of them are biodynamic. Our wines are mid-priced. I don't consider them super expensive. They're more intended to be value for money. And if scores are any metric that you can believe in, all of our wines are usually a 90 point or higher scores from major wine critics. We grow about 1/3 of the fruit that we need for annual production. And then the other 2/3 are vineyards with whom we've got 20-year or more working relationships all around the other AVAs in the Willamette Valley. And so you can come to one place and get either a taste of the Willamette Valley in the glass with our Pinot Gris Vineyard Select or our Barrels Select Pinot Noir, or you can dig deeper and get vineyard-specific wines from our estate or any one of these about 14 other vineyards that we work with. If you want to know any of the detailed notes about the wines, labels, scores, there's a URL there at the bottom of that slide that you can go to our website and geek out. Next slide.
I have to unmute to just say I love that last point. Unique, spunky, emotional labor.
That kind of describes everybody who works here, especially my wife. So if you're familiar with Oregon, second down from the left on the West Coast, we are right below that Columbia River. Portland is on the confluence of the Willamette River where it joins the mighty Columbia, with Washington State to our north. And here are several of the AVAs. I haven't updated this map yet. There are, as I mentioned, the new Laurelwood AVA is contained inside of that little upside down Tyrannosaurus Rex that's called the Chehalem Mountains. And there's also, about a year ago, a new AVA formed right in the Coast Range called the Van Duzer Corridor. There's a little notch in the mountain range that blocks us from the Pacific Ocean. And that notch is only about 700 feet elevation, and it allows nightly winds to come in and blast the Eola Hills where we get some of our fruit. More on that later. If you click the slide one more, you'll see, for your future reference, all of the little X's are the vineyards that Raptor Ridge has worked with for a couple of decades. These all inform our Pinot Noir, our Pinot Gris, our Auxerrois, our Chardonnay. I even have a vineyard that's way off the map, 5 hours south here, still in Oregon in the Rogue Valley, where we source some pretty awesome Tempranillo. Again, I just wanted this on the recording so you can go back and visit this. It's also on our website if you want to drill down and kind of scratch your head about what each of these different sites mean. Pinot Noir and Chardonnay really are wine grapes that respond to their soil, the aspect that they have with the air, the temperatures, their microclimate. And so I love being able to pull each of these flavors, textures, aromas, and blend them together to make our Barrels Select Pinot Noir, as well as try to select from each fermentation the best representation of each of those sites. And so that's, you know, I'm not the first person to say that I'm a terroirist, but that is what we're doing. So I think what we can do is look at the list of wines that you've got in your little Boston bottles. Those are the 5 wines we're going to taste today. And if we want to perhaps get into the first one, which is our 2018 Pinot Gris. The Pinot Gris comes from about 5 different vineyards. 2 of them are certified organic. One of them, the rest are certified live, sustainable, low input viticulture and enology. I'll just give you all a second to open the Pinot Gris and get it into your glass, get your glass all seasoned. We harvest each of these vineyards separately. We bring them in and we whole cluster press it. So we're being very gentle on the fruit. We get not every little bit of juice that we can, but we get the best core center juice of the berries by doing whole cluster. We'll do a very light bentonite fining that removes unwanted aromas and bitterness. And so we have some very pure juice that gets transferred into those stainless steel tanks that I showed you. And we'll separate into about 3 different tanks and use different strains of yeast. I love Alsatian white wines, and one of the yeasts I've worked with for years is called ALS. I think it's an abbreviation for Alsace. The maker has isolated a naturally occurring yeast from the vineyards of Alsace and then purified it, and they provide it to me in freeze-dried packets. So convenient. So we'll do different yeast for aroma, texture, flavor, and then combine that to make just shy of 3,000 cases a year. You know, per vintage, what other Mother Nature will give me, 2,500 to 3,000 cases a year of the Pinot Gris. The wine is cold fermented, and by that I mean we are chilling these tanks and we're walking a very fine line between shutting down the fermentation and stalling it versus having it be too hot and going too quickly and blowing off some of these lovely floral aromas. So we're sometimes we're taking 3 months to get this wine fermented to dryness. And I go virtually dry with our Pinot Gris. I think this vintage, we have about 2 grams per liter of residual sugar, just below the threshold of where most humans detect sweetness. So just a little off dry to uplift the fruit. And Joe, I don't know if you're taking questions on the chat or if we want to ask anybody for impressions here.
Yeah, we are very happy to have any questions come through the chat, or if you want to ask a question now, please feel free to unmute yourself. But Scott, currently we do not have anything waiting for us in the chat room. So we can go ahead and continue there.
Super. So in closing on the Pinot Gris, it's one of our highest production wines. You know, with 3,000 cases a year, it's about 1/3 of my production. We've made Pinot Gris since 1996. Our first vintage was 95. We were doing Chardonnay and Pinot then, and then we added Pinot Gris in 96. And we've developed nationally a really strong following on our Pinot Gris. Great food wine. I love it with you know, scallops or Italian food that's got white sauces, or we're just sitting down and relaxing, you know, by one glass of wine. Okay, the next wine is rosé, and we've been making rosé since, you know, before rosé was cool. Again, back in the late 90s. We've always made, you know, maybe 50 to 100 cases a year. And then rosé started to get kind of popular a few years ago, and we scaled up to all of 250 cases a year. So, you know, very much boutique scale. But a couple years ago, we kept noticing that we'd run out of rosé well before fall, and so we scaled up to where we're making 500 to 700 cases a year. For us, that's a lot. I know in the scheme of things for the wine world, that's nothing. I mean, we've got folks from Provence that are doing 1 million cases a year. But what we're able to do is to put attention to detail into the vineyards that we use for rosé. This is not a saignée. We're not bleeding off juice from fermenters, where what we're trying to do is concentrate the real wine that we're focused on, and the rosé is just the byproduct. We actually lease 2 specific vineyards, Bellevue Cross out in the McMinnville Coast Range and Zenith Vineyard in the Eola Amity Hills. We work with those growers in how the vines are pruned, trellised, crop load, and handled. So from the ground up, the intention is rosé. So we harvest the fruit. It's all Pinot Noir, 2 different clones. We have old own-rooted Pommard from Bellevue Cross, and we have grafted Vadensville from Zenith Vineyard. The entire grape, whole cluster pressed and made very similarly to the process I described for our Pinot Gris. So light bentonite fining goes into cold stainless steel tanks. And the maceration, there is no maceration. It goes into the press, and we're doing about a 2-hour press cycle with a couple of spins and rolls. And so the color that we get is from that time it's spent on the skins. So thanks for the question. It's I think technically not a maceration. It's just we give it a few more rolls and spins and crumbling in the wine press. Cold stainless steel fermentation, off dry. You know, I think it might be, again, 1 or 2 grams per liter of residual sugar in this rosé. We're looking for expression of rose petals, cherry, maybe a little bit of Oregon shroominess that just comes from that fruit, and we love it. We also have kind of, I don't know if it's unique, but we keg this rosé as well as bottle it. So for those of you out there that have buy the glass programs, you can serve your customers from draft a keg by the glass, and if they say, hey, I like this and I want to go to my table, they can buy a bottle and take it to the table. I saw a question pop by there, but I missed it. What was the question?
Hey, Scott, I have a question.
Go for it.
Why the choice not to utilize some of your estate fruit for the rosé?
Our estate is really only 15 acres, and what I wanted to do is to get some, and it's 20 years old. So I'm focused on these. Those are considered older vines in Oregon. I wanted to use some younger fruit that's kind of fresher, and that we could work with the grower to do a unique trellising system rather than changing what I have going on here at the estate. Now, for that same rationale, there is one block in our estate, block number 1, our oldest vines, and we have changed the trellising there for Brut Rosé. We changed that to be what's called a Scott Henry trellising system. So it's a double canopy. We have a fruit zone up high that goes vertically up, and a fruit zone mid-level that is trained to go down. So we double the crop load. We really slow down the ripening, but get the balance and the acidity needed for base wine for sparkling Brut Rosé. So thanks for the question. Anyway, I'm pretty excited about rosé. It's a fairly inexpensive wine the way we price it, but we put as much effort and attention to detail and love into making that rosé as we do any of our top end wines. So this vintage that we just are finishing, our rosé is already in the tank, and it looks gorgeous. It's light and bright and racy. If there are any other questions about rosé, great, let's go for it. Otherwise, we can pop on to the Barrels Select Pinot Noir.
Scott, quick question on the rosé. Like when you say 1 to 2 grams of RS, in the grand scheme of things, that's still considered pretty dry.
Yeah.
I mean, typically 2 grams or less RS, that's dry.
It's dry and stable, yeah.
And this 1 to 2 grams, when you say the rosé and the Pinot Gris has, that's not from chaptalizing. That's just naturally occurring, right?
That's naturally occurring. I think the research says that most humans can detect sweetness at about 3 grams per liter or higher, the 0.3 RS. Some people are a little more sensitive. When we're tasting this wine, as we're getting toward the end of the fermentation curve, Shannon and I are still tasting a little sweetness. It's to us not bone dry, but we do hit the brakes. We slam on the chillers, and we'll hit a little antioxidant, a little sulfite into the wine to arrest fermentation. So it's an intentional endpoint. I feel like I'm at a Texas dance here. I'm walking backwards, around the dance floor.
You are unbelievably talented, and I'm just worried you're gonna do a land on your rear side there. But I'm happy that I'm knocking on wood, by the way.
Yeah, you're
doing awesome, my friend.
There's some gopher holes here,
I'm sure some vines hanging out.
Yeah. Since we're switching to Pinot Noir, I'll just we've had a very light crop set here in May and June when we had bloom. It was a little cool and a little wet. And so, this is a small and very loosely set Pinot Noir cluster. This vineyard here, our Tuscaloosa Estate Vineyard, normally we'll set 5 to 6 tons per acre. And I've got to bring a crew in and thin the fruit in order to get it down to the balance point I'm looking for, which is 2.5 to 3 tons per acre. This year, Mother Nature gave us about 2 tons per acre. Some blocks are a little bit less, so we didn't have to spend on labor for thinning, but thankfully it's been cool here in early September. We had a blistering hot summer, and things were very dry, but we've had smoke come over and cool things down and kind of arrest the ripening so that we're getting, I think some nice finishing weather here. We're going to be going after about 5 of these blocks on Sunday, picking from our estate vineyard. So
maybe we should jump back to you on Sunday then too, maybe.
could do.
Just kidding, Scott.
You can call. I'll be out here on the tractor. If you don't mind flipping to the slide that shows the Barrel Select, because I think that's the next wine up. So again, this is a kind of a national calling card for Raptor Ridge. We make, there's some years we'll do at least 4,000 cases of this, but it's, it's 2,000 to 4,000 cases a year. And every year I do my little pie chart there so you can see what are the vineyards that inform this. So this is really swinging through almost all of the sub-AVAs of the Willamette Valley. Almost half of it is from our estate, and then it's informed by, some of these others from the Eola Amity Hills, from McMinnville. And the way I like to position this is, or at least the intention is, this is a taste of the Willamette Valley in the glass. So Oregon is increasingly becoming known for Pinot Noir, and the Willamette Valley is kind of the crown jewel of Oregon Pinot production. And our goal with this wine is to give people a taste of that Willamette Valley in the glass. And then if they're interested in drilling down, we can also provide them vineyard-specific wines. As I mentioned, we've worked with these very experienced growers now for 25 years. I think Meredith Mitchell Vineyard is my oldest contract. So old growers means experienced growers. These folks know what they're doing, and we also have great communication with them on how we want them to prune, manage, and then harvest decisions are always mine. So we bring in block by block from these vineyards, usually a specific clone of Pinot Noir picked at a specific time. It is fermented separately, block by block, and then we'll drain from the fermentation and keep free run separate from press run. So we have texture, structure, and flavor all kept separate. And then we barrel age these components separately and then go back in after secondary fermentation is done in the winter. And Shannon Gustafson, who's joined the team coming on 4 years ago, Shannon and I will taste through, these hundreds of barrels and design this wine. I saw the question, what is WS yeast? That is a yeast that was isolated from the William Sellium vineyard in California. And it used to only be available in liquid culture, but now they also have it available in that freeze-dried package that I mentioned. So years ago, I used to have to grow up my own William Sellium liquid cultures, but I love the yeast. It's clean. It has very low nutrient requirements, so it doesn't create a stinky fermentation. It expresses fruit and structure. So we'll use WS on quite a bit of our fermentations, as well as some other yeasts that are in the geeky tech notes on our website. Thanks for the question.
Hey, Scott. I just happen to have, we don't distribute it, but I was sent some samples and a box of William Sellium. Can you see that?
I'm not seeing it right now, but
all right, it's a box of William Sellium that's been in my office. It's not William Sellium wine, but it was sent to. Someone sent me some samples in a box of William Sellium. Oh,
yeah, got it. Well, they're obviously
Dan
a great producer.
Gonna harvest some yeast off that box for us.
Well, hopefully not. Well, I'll leave that alone, of course.
So we have a little fog. We're looking across southeast here on this other hill to our neighbors, Ponzi Winery. They're probably celebrating their 51st vintage this year. They got started out in this valley, half a century ago, but they are our neighbors here in the Chehalem Mountains. Any other thoughts or questions about the Barrel Select?
Just fantastic that, Scott, you can open up every time you open up this bottle and just the aromatics that come out immediately. It's just, I mean, it is absolutely classic, beautiful, everything you'd want in a Pinot Noir.
Thank you. And similarly to the message I had about our Pinot Gris, the Barrels Select Pinot Noir is available in kegs as well. So you can save on glass. The kegs are one-way recyclable. So if you've got plastic recycling, you can just send that out with the recycling. We make a few kegs. We don't do a whole lot of them. So there's only about 40 or 50 made a year. The 2017 vintage is in transition now, meaning Glunz has stock in inventory. We're sold out at the winery, so if you like this wine, go for it. We'll be segueing into the 2018 as we get through OND and current stocks are sold out. 18 is a gorgeous wine too. It's a little, the 17 is a little, I don't know how you guys are perceiving it, but for me, it's a little brighter and more lithe, and it's got that red cherry fruit, silky texture. Foreshadowing a little bit, the 2018 has got a bit more gravitas. It's a riper vintage. We're moving in the 18 from red fruit notes toward more blueberry and kind of a darker, more brooding. They're different, but they are both classic Willamette Valley Pinot Noir. Okay, next I think we move to the 2015 Estate. So right from this place. These vines, as I mentioned, Annie and I bought this land right at the turn of the millennium in 2000. So we had been in business for 5 years. I was making wine in our sheep barn on our home property 2 miles from here. And we were outgrowing that. We needed more space, and we wanted to have a consistent supply of wine grapes that we could have our hands on and control. And boy, we did have our hands on this. So this was an abandoned cherry orchard. I spent Labor Day weekend on a track hoe clearing 20 acres of cherry trees, ripping out the roots. Then we got rootstock and budwood cuttings from some of these vineyards that I had very much enjoyed, from Meredith Mitchell, Stony Mountain Vineyard. What I was going for was Pommard, Wadensville, and some of the then new Dijon clones of Pinot that were coming into the States. So myself and Macario and Dagoberto spent the summer grafting our own budwood onto rootstock, growing it up in a greenhouse, and then planting it in the fall, just as things were going dormant. So we planted the first 4 acres, block 1 through 4, took 2 years off to let our wallets recover, and then did the same thing for the middle block, took 2 years off, and then replanted this block here that I'm standing. This is the northernmost block. So in effect, inside the 20-acre fence, we have about a little over 15 acres of vines in the ground. Mostly Pinot Noir. There is an acre and a half of Gruner Veltliner. I didn't put that in the tasting today, but it's a very successful wine that we sell in bottle and keg as well. And Glunz has been very successful with it there in Illinois. So get a chance to visit the Gruner if you will. So the estate vine has a diversity of different clones. I only mentioned a few, but there's Wadensville, Dijon clone 115, 667, 777, Pommard, and clone 114. And I also varied the rootstock. So rootstock can be moderately vigorous to very devigorating. As I mentioned in kind of the opening remarks, these slopes of the northern Chehalem Mountains have this loess soil that was washed and blown in from the Missoula floods. It's ground up granite rock flour. So it's like literally a dust. When it's dry, you come out and kick your toe and poof, you're in a cloud of this gray-white dust called loess. as we got to the bottom of the hill, that soil became deeper and deeper, probably holds more water. So I used a very devigorating rootstock at the bottom of the hill and successively more enabling rootstock as we came to the top of the hill. Why? I'm trying to keep the whole vineyard kind of at the same level of vigor and synchronize it. And it's worked pretty well. We go through and harvest these blocks like we do other vineyards. So block by block, clone by clone, only when we think it's at the perfection of ripeness. Bring it up to the winery, keep everything separate, fermenter by fermenter, separate free run from press run. We go into about 5 different coopers, all French oak cooperage, ranging from about 25 to 30% new oak, all the way down to some old friends. We track every barrel, and if a barrel is giving us great wine every year, we don't get rid of it. I have some barrels in the cellar that are 12 years old. That's probably about the oldest. On average, the barrels are around 5 to 6 times used, and then they're put out to pasture, which means they become planters or dog kennels or rocking chairs. Many uses for old barrels. So you can see the stats there on the tech sheet for what blocks went into this. We taste everything from barrel when we're making these decisions. We taste everything blind. So we'll pull samples out and we'll put them in these little bottles like you're drinking from that have a code number on the bottom of it. So we're tasting, forming our notes about what we like, what we think is a true signature, without being led by some name of the block or the clone. That said, invariably, we tend to like our Pomard block up here at the top. I'm right here by block 9, which is Pomard clone. Block 5, right next to it up the hill, is also Pomard. That tends to go into our estate, as well as components from down the hill, which are I think the clone 777 and 667 makes it into the designed blend. We limit the production quantity of our estate Pinot to no more than 500 cases a year. So it's 450, 500 cases a year. And we also cellar it a bit before releasing it. So we're giving people an age-worthy wine that has some finishing touches put on it by some cellar age. 2015 is our current vintage, and we're about halfway through that. So inventories of the 15 estate are good. Questions on the estate Pinot, or any comments about how it strikes you differently than the Barrel Select?
Do you have a different toast in the barrels for the estate? It shows a little bit more round viscosity quality to it. So is it a barrel program a little different?
It ends up being different. We don't go into the deal saying, oh, I want more new oak. Oh, well, it's more like I want structure, and I want a matrix in the wine that it makes it age worthy. We're building a wine to last and get better, over a decade. Whereas the Barrel Select, intentionally, we're shooting for instant gratification. So I think with that intention, we end up with a little higher percentage of new French oak, maybe a little more leaning toward a little more toast from those barrels, but it's not premeditated in the design choices.
Quite a bit more viscosity on that. Definitely punches out a lot more of that darker red fruit to it, but very elegant nonetheless. And definitely those choices that you pulled barrel-wise, you can tell you have that very signature estate flavor with really well integrated creamy mouthfeel for sure. And the acidity is just spot on.
Good to hear. And the fifth wine that we wanted to showcase, we've had the pleasure of working with, you know, some of the crown jewels of Oregon's Pinot Noir scene. Shea Vineyard, Crawford Beck, Meredith Mitchell. But in our national portfolio, we love to have the showcase of Temperance Hill Vineyard. This vineyard is 30 years old. A little over 20 years ago, they hired a perfectionist farmer named Di Crisp. Di has been an organic acolyte from day one. So for over 20 years, this vineyard has been farmed with no herbicides and completely organic methods and certified organic. It's high in the Eola Hills. So in the northern Willamette Valley, it's the southernmost AVA. Ancient volcanic soil, very old soils, very weathered and worn. High means it's like 700 to 900 feet. Here in Oregon, that's a cooler site. And it's on the western slopes of the Eola Amity Hills. So it faces that Van Duzer corridor I spoke of. That means it gets these nightly winds that come blasting in, cooling off the vineyard, slowing the ripening, thickening the skins of the Pinot. So you'll get much darker color. You'll get thicker skins, give you more tannin. So this wine is very structured, more black fruited, more spice. I think with this vintage, we actually also had about, I'll prove my memory wrong because it's on the slide, but about 25 to 30% whole cluster in it. Great earth, great shroominess along with that black fruit and structure. So it's a great wine in my opinion, as is, but it also has the additional pedigree for any of you who are looking for certified organic grapes. So that's why we have it in our portfolio lineup.
Great stuff.
Get my bifocals to work here. Did I guess right on the whole cluster? Anyway, it's got some.
You were pretty darn close there, Scott. Vintage after vintage, they all kind of tend to, I'm sure blend in the head. But you were 15% is what the whole cluster is here on the 17
okay,
Temperance.
That low, okay. That's just a kiss of whole cluster.
Just a kiss of the cluster.
Yeah, we wanted to stay focused on these 5 wines, so I'm glad you all took the time to taste them. I mentioned our Gruner Veltliner. I also do Chardonnay. We were delighted a couple of weeks ago to be named by Wine and Spirits best value, one of the best Willamette Valley Chardonnays. So that's our 2017 Grand Moraine Vineyard Chardonnay, all Dijon clone. So many wines we can't get into your glass this morning, but we're happy that you took the time. I saw a question about what, a narrow gauge tractor? This tractor here it's probably older than most of you, even you, Joe. This is my this is my second tractor. I mean, it's before OSHA made you have roll bars, so it has no roll bar on it. It's a Kubota. It's considered narrow gauge. And then this is my new tractor. This one's 20 years old, but being a white kid who was born in Kentucky and then grew up in Missouri and moved out here, I've got fair skin. And this is a story about my wife, Annie. I had a little skin cancer that needed to be removed. It's all good. It wasn't anything malignant, but she said, "Oh, I don't like the idea of you being out there in the sun. You need a new tractor. You need a tractor with a cabin and air conditioner." And I said, "Really, Annie? Do you think so?" So that was my birthday present about 20 years ago. That's usually my office during most summer days in the growing season. It's time to put those away here right after harvest.
I think we've had a couple meetings with you in that tractor, actually.
Can I speak briefly about Tempranillo grown in Oregon? Absolutely. as I said, about a 5-hour drive south of here. If you hit on I-5, you get to Salem, Eugene, Cottage Grove, Roseburg, Grants Pass, and then almost to Medford, and head up into the Cascade Mountains, head east to about 2,000 feet elevation, right alongside the Rogue River, is Folan Family Vineyard. So, you know, it's really like the mountains of Spain down there. And they've been terribly successful with Tempranillo from the Rogue Valley. Long story short, Rob Folan was working up here for a winery that I was buying some used barrels from, got to know him, his family, and just fell in love with their quality ethic and started making a couple hundred cases a year of Tempranillo. We followed that rabbit hole to where we're now doing a Reserva style. So 2 years in barrel, we bottle it, lay it down for a year, and then label and sell it to market. So 2015 Reserva is our current. The Washington Wine Review, Dr. Owen Bargreen, picked out 10 best domestic Tempranillos, and we were honored to be one of them with that vintage. Again, any of these wines, the fine folks at Glunz can get you. They're not always stocked, but you know, it's a week truck drive away. If it's something that would fit your program, we'd be honored to be part of it.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the question.
Scott, well, we have been hanging out in the vineyards here for a while. Is there anything that you are doing in your trellising segment right before harvest that is any different than throughout the rest of the year, as far as getting some light or shade on the grapes, or just moving those wires up a little higher to give more sunlight to the grapes?
Not anything right here at just before harvest, but right after bloom happens, when the cluster set berries, we'll come through and pull leaves. So normally these would all be covered with leaves all the way down to the fruiting zone, but we'll come through and pull 100% of the leaves here on the sunrise side, and then on the sunset side, we'll leave, you know, maybe 20% of the leaves. I call these the sombreros. In Oregon, around 4 o'clock in the afternoon is the hottest time of the year. Being this far north, it's right where the sun is just direct and obliquely hitting these guys. And so to avoid sunburn, we leave a few leaves on the sunset side. But we maintain that throughout the growing season. It's nothing that we're doing right now, other than just waiting for that peak of ripeness. This is a crazy year. If I have just a second more to talk about it, haven't seen this before. It has been so. Oregon in the summer is very dry. That's not news. It's one of the driest places, drier than Burgundy, almost like Napa. So from the middle of June to you know, middle of October, you might get at most an inch of rain a month. We've had nothing till last night when we had 1/4 of an inch of rain. So the strange effect that we're seeing is that the grapes were getting riper as measured by more sugar. And then about 10 days ago, they started marching backward, losing sugar. And it's been dry and relatively cool. So you would think, oh, well, you could almost desiccate the vines and concentrate the sugar, but that hasn't been happening. So the zeitgeist, the theory that's going around is that the vines are saying, I don't care about you, my kids. I need some carbohydrates back for me to survive. So they've been sucking a little of the sugar out of the vine. Meanwhile, the acids have been coming into balance and the flavors are wonderful. So the prediction I have is that we're going to have a very flavorful vintage 2020, but lower alcohol. And I'm good with that. Hopefully you are too. Now we've got a little bit of rain here this week and then a little bit more next week. I'm actually hoping that that's kind of balance the relationship between the babies and their parents here, and the fruit will move back up to maybe 22 bricks, and the vines will get out of a stress at that stress reaction that I was describing.
A lot of people hear about second crop, and it's nothing that we use primarily in any premium wine production. But a lot of people I don't think have ever seen it. So I saw a couple of those little tiny clusters, and that is not harvested. Those are, you want to talk a little bit to what that is and what the result is?
Sure. So the primary crop comes from the basil, the base shoot, and this flowers in late May, early June, and sets fruit. Meanwhile, the shoot keeps growing, of course, right? And you'll get a process up here in the top of the canopy where they'll set another flower, and usually it's smaller, and you'll get let me cancel that. You'll get this crop that sets, that's a real small second crop, but it's about a month behind or more. So right now it's green. It hasn't even gone into Verison. We tend to leave it unless it's huge. If there's a huge amount of second crop, we'll go through and remove it so that it's not detracting energy from the vine. But this year, we actually have very little second crop. So here's one that you can see that is, let's pull that leaf. It's actually going into Verison right now. It's starting to change color, compared to its primary fruit. That this stuff is a month ahead, glistening with last night's rainfall.
That's awesome. So, very good.
So anyway,
it's fun.
Exciting
it's
times.
Fun to be able to be out in the vineyard and see some of these things that people ask for, and they're just like, they mentioned second crop, and to be able to physically see that, it's great. Is there any chance, Scott, that we're going to ask you to show us a little bit around the winery?
Let me walk around the corner.
Fantastic.
We've got Shannon Gustafson will be running around barking orders. As I said, she joined our team about 4 years ago, made wine for the last 19 years all over the world. And so we were great to get Shannon on board, leading the operations down here. She's made wine in Burgundy, Bordeaux, Australia, New Zealand, and hails from California's Central Coast in the Paso Robles area. I might get scolded for walking in here without a mask. Hi, Shannon. Shannon Gustafson in purple. Ximena Arrego is owner of Atticus Vineyards, one of the vineyards we work with. And Remy, who's joining us this year as one of our 3 interns. Anyway, the cellar. Let's do this in 30 seconds. So we pick fruit into small picking bins that get loaded up into our dump stand. This is under pedal control that can slowly dump through the hopper into our shaker table where we pull out anything that isn't a grape. So leaves come out, stink bugs come out. If we see fruit that isn't ripe or that's rotted, it comes out. Then it falls onto our conveyor table, which is a second sort to make sure we get everything out of the fruit. Falls off of the table into what the Kiwis call a giraffe. So this is our fruit elevator. Runs up and then would drop into our destemmer. The destemmer would normally be pushed over there. So we'll destem and come out of a chute where we'll do a third sort to remove any green material that we don't want, jacks or any leaves that we missed. We will add whole clusters from vines that have lignified stems. So we're generally doing 20 to 30% whole cluster in our Pinots. After fermentation, we've got our Slovakian stainless steel membrane press. We're not too far into Pinot production this year. As I mentioned, we had just 3 fermenters. We like to ferment in these 1.5-ton macro bins. So what we have in here so far is Atticus Vineyard, Pinot Noir from Block 4. Block 4 is Pomard, a recurring theme. And I mentioned the Pinot Gris tanks. These two big 4,000-gallon tanks are where we do our temperature-controlled Pinot Gris. All stainless steel. Hopefully, I won't lose transmission as I go into the cellar. So we're about 20 feet underground here. In the cellar behind thick concrete, our barrel room, where we can come back in about a month. Pinot Noir and Chardonnay and Auxerrois. Hey, I saw an earlier question about Auxerrois. Did I miss somebody's? It scrolls past my screen there. I'm going to shut that.
Oh, good. Yeah, it was. Auxerrois is often not fully getting the respect it deserves in Alsace. I'm wondering if you could please tell us more about yours.
Yeah, we lease a block from Zenith Vineyard. It's the oldest planting of Auxerrois in the Willamette Valley. It was part of an experiment to see what are the right cultivars to grow here. Those in the know will remember that Auxerrois is a proper sibling of Chardonnay. So Chardonnay and Auxerrois and Gamay Noir, Aligote, they all descended from Pinot Noir crossed with Gouais Blanc. So it is similar in my mind to Chardonnay, but it's a little heavier palate weight, a little more fruit forward. We love blending a touch of it in our Pinot Gris. Oregon has very strict labeling laws, so we can't put more than, what is it now? They've tightened it even more. I think it's like no more than 5%, but we'll put in 1 or 2% Auxerrois into our Pinot Gris. But we also do a barrel fermented, very serious, single 100% bottling of Auxerrois that we sell here at the tasting room and the wine club. We make about 300 or 400 cases of it a year, which makes us Oregon's largest producer of Auxerrois. So doesn't take much.
I've never tried that solely on its own. So we'll have to do that next time we're out, since you're the state expert on it.
We love it. It's one of our favorite wines. Just very, very rich. And yeah, it is grown prevalently in Alsace. A lot of their bottlings will come to the United States, and they'll of course label it by the name of the vineyard. And then for Americans, they'll also say Pinot Blanc on the bottling. You dig into the tech sheets, and it's 70% Auxerrois.
Very cool. Well, I'm going to open it up, unless there's anything else, Scott, that you wanted to highlight on. I wanted to open it up to anyone for any other further questions here. And I'm going to go ahead and pull you off the spotlight to give you a little bit of a break there. And you can hit the gallery view, but I don't have anything else in the chat. Scott, we might have, you mentioned 2020. What a challenging year. Yeah, for sure. In more ways than one, for sure. But when we're looking at doing this tasting hall, we were really very thrilled and excited at a lot of the options that were coming around as ideas. And as soon as we kind of dialed into what we were looking for, there was no question you were going to be involved. Your presentation style, your knowledge, your willingness to jump onto change and to pivot and to really get in deep has always impressed us. And now we have the proof in the pudding. There was one of the best presentations so far. So I want to thank you very much for that, Scott. I wish we got to see Annie. I know she's busy actually selling wine, so we can't argue about that. But thank you very much.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for all the support, everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you.